Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon and TLBTV. Today is part of the 7 series, and we're going to talk about 7 tips to protect yourself while you're driving. I am excited about this because we get so complacent in the things that we do, and we just get so comfortable with everything that we forget about all the things that we need to do to protect ourselves. We're just on the go all the time, and our mind runs a mile a minute. And so let's talk today about how we can protect ourselves. The game changer began at the invention of the wheel. And I want to fast forward from the wheel to the Old West times, because that's really when I want you to start getting a good visual here about some things that may have happened along the way to freedom or a new life. And so while people were migrating around and traveling around in their covered wagons, what do you think they had with them? I'm going to tell you, they had their valuables with them, all their worldly possessions, and off they go. Well, that's a good thing. There's always the flip side, and those people who want to take advantage of that. And so you've had people that would rob them, take all their valuables. Nothing really has changed since then between the covered wagon and to the SUV here. It's the same. There's still people taking advantage of those who keep their worldly possessions and their valuables in the car. And we don't really think much about this anymore, but it happens all the time. And I will tell you, your number one possession is you. And every one of those occupants that are in your car are a priority over everything. And so I want to talk to you also about safety today, because part of self-defense is prevention, and we're going to talk about car accidents as well as other types of crimes that can occur where you can become a victim. So thinking about that for a minute, what do you take with you in your car just on a daily outing? You've got your wallet, maybe a purse if you're a female, and when you go to different places, you're there picking up things. You're picking up items from the grocery store, you're picking up gifts, especially at Christmas time. And so it's really important to be thinking about all the different things that you keep in the car and where you place them. Where do you put your wallet? I know that there's some people who put their wallet on the dashboard or in the console, and women put it on the passenger seat next to them or on the floorboard. But those are all strategic locations that perpetrators know that they can get your valuables. And so we definitely don't want that. Okay, so with that being said, let's talk about the first tip for today. And there's lots and lots and lots of tips out there. And I want this to just sort of get your mind flowing with different things that you could do to protect yourself, okay? So the very first thing that we're going to talk about today is parking. And we park in a lot of places, from our driveway to our garage. We park on the street. We park in parking lots all over the place. But no matter where we park, we want to be safe. And so one of the things that you need to do is choose a location that is very well lit. And you want to be able to see, when you are standing near your car, what's inside that car. Well, whatever you can see, so can somebody else. But the other thing is, you want to be able to see inside your car for a specific reason. So that brings tip number 2 to the surface, and that is a visual inspection of your car. So when you have parked your car, you want to always, always, always look in the car before you enter. Why? And this is a touchy subject here, but abductions or physical attacks can occur by people who enter your vehicle and they hide there until you get in. This is also where kidnappings can happen and other types of crimes. So you want to make sure that you're parked in a well-lit location and that you can see in there, and make sure that nobody's behind the seats. If you have an SUV, that you can see in the back and that you can see in the front, period. You've got to be able to see in that vehicle so that you can protect yourself before you get in the car, because if somebody's in there, you don't get in. Okay, so that's always, always, always look. And after you've checked the interior of the car, you want to do a visual inspection and make sure that none of the handles to the vehicle or the window seals are kind of tampered with in any way. If that's the case, it means that someone tried to get in your vehicle. Now, why is this important? Well, you think, okay, but nobody's in it. That doesn't mean they're not still around. So you really want to make sure that you are alert to, and this is going to be a tip down the road here, but alert to your surroundings as you're doing this. You also want to look at the trunk. Does that trunk look like it's been jimmied, or is it partially open? Could there be somebody in the trunk? Those are things to think about. And this is not to scare you, but the more you think about what you're going to do in the event that something happens, you are going to be able to react automatically, believe it or not. The more that we visualize how we do something in a specific event is more likely how our brain is going to have us handle that situation in the event it actually occurs. So this is really important to be thinking about. Better to be able to know how you would react or think about how you would react in certain situations than to not and just kind of freeze up because you don't know what to do. So that's part of what this is all about, is allowing you the opportunity to think ahead and use some strategies, some prevention strategies. I want to go back for a minute and talk about some statistics. And when it comes to car accidents, statistically speaking, they happen within a 5 to 25 mile radius of the home. This is important to know because often we think, well, I'm just going to make a quick trip down to the store. It's just right down the block. Well, actually, a lot of things can happen during that short jaunt. And so that's just something to keep in your mind, and utilizing all of these tips is going to help you in car accidents amongst other crimes. The Office of Justice Bureau of Statistics, their website indicates that carjackings occur the highest in urban areas, followed by suburban, and then rural areas. This is important to know because we often think about, okay, well, if I'm not in the city, then more likely this isn't going to happen. That's just not the case at all, but it does happen more often in more populated areas. That's the way it is. And what's really interesting to note about this is that in 74% of carjackings, and in 74% of carjacking victimizations, firearms were used 45% of the time, 11% were by knives, and 18% by other weapons. Now, does this mean that we should outlaw firearms? That is not what I'm saying here at all, because you need to have your Second Amendment rights protected and be able to self-defend, defend yourself. I mean, that is something that's really important. What is important to know is that people who are perpetrators are using weapons to gain access to vehicles, to harm people, so on and so forth. This is important to know because you need to know how you are going to defend yourself in the event that this type of a situation is presented to you. Okay, so the first two things that I've shared with you are ways that you can prevent these kinds of things from happening to you. Okay, and so you want to park in a well-lit location, and you want to do a visual inspection. This is important for other reasons too. While you're visually inspecting your vehicle, you can look to make sure that your tires aren't flat and things like that, other things to prevent car accidents. All of the tips that I give you are going to be able to be used in one form or another to protect yourself. And I want you to be thinking the big picture, not just on the things that I say here. Be thinking about other things that I have not talked about today. Number 3, keeping your doors locked. Keeping the car doors locked is important, and I know that we feel like, well, this is my car, I shouldn't really have to, but there's a lot of points here to think about. You should lock your car doors immediately upon entry in the car. There are many vehicles nowadays that as soon as you start moving a certain speed, the car doors automatically lock on their own, but there's still a lot of vehicles that don't. You may have locks that break. You want to make sure that you maintain that so that you can lock all of the doors that are in your vehicle. And you want to lock the doors when you exit the vehicle. You don't want to allow somebody to gain entry into your car. So that will prevent someone from getting in the car. Just somebody that we're going around checking handles, let's say on a car, and seeing if they can gain access. Sometimes that in itself is a prevention and a deterrent. Now, we'll talk further about this in a minute here when I talk to you about one of the most common questions that police insurance companies have to people who have been a victim of a crime that's involved their vehicle. Okay, so they're going to ask you, if you call police or police respond, or you're filing a report with the insurance company, and they're going to say, well, when this happened, were the doors on your car locked? And this is important because that whether or not those doors were locked determines the type of crime. It also determines if an additional crime is going to be added on to that particular incident or situation that occurred. Very, very important here. And so if you get in the habit of always locking your doors and upon entry and exit of your vehicle, you're going to be able to know and be confident in saying, yeah, my doors were locked. So for example, if someone enters your car in some states and the doors were not locked and they take something, it's only a theft. But if they actually had to forcibly enter the car and break the locks to gain access or break a window, and then they take something and there was an intent to commit a crime, then it's a burglary. So you have now a different type of crime. So super important. All right, now the fourth tip here is I want to talk to you about video. A lot of people are kind of uncomfortable when it comes to having a video or audio recording of themselves, but I'm going to tell you that this really is important for a lot of reasons. And so you can get a video camera that can be fixed on your rear view mirror, or it can attach to your windshield somehow. But you want to make sure that if you get anything with a suction device on it that goes, say, to a windshield, that it's actually going to mount there and stay there. You want it to be fixed so that the quality of the recording is good, and you want a camera that's going to be able to swivel completely around. And the reason for that is that you can adjust it to gain a wider scope when you're driving. And also, in the event that you're in your vehicle and someone approaches your car for any reason, you can turn that camera and have it capture that person on there, and that's evidence now for law enforcement to use. So it can really be evidentiary in a car accident, who's at fault. It can be very helpful also to law enforcement for other types of crime as well. So one other thing that I want to mention is to get two things when it comes to video systems that you put in your car, and that is you have an adapter that plugs into to your vehicle so that it maintains a constant charge. It's not on a battery, and some people know this as a cigarette lighter adapter. And also one that has an SD card, a removable SD card. It's not just connected to a USB where you have to take the whole unit out, then plug it into your computer or whatever the case may be. You definitely want an SD card so you can remove that SD card. You can hand that over to law enforcement for evidence. You can also take that in and put it on your computer, download it, and then put that back into the video system, and then continue to record over that. And so that is a really good resource to have. And you want an SD card that has a lot of space on it, a terabyte or 32 gigs or whatever, but the bigger the better. The more storage it has, the more recordings you're going to be able to capture, the longer time period. And if you have an incident that takes place, like a car accident that goes on for an hour or 2 hours while you're waiting, this will be able to capture all that. Number 5 on my list of tips is flashlights and multi-tools. You should have flashlights throughout your vehicle, in the front of the car, in the middle of the car, and in the rear or trunk of the car. And in addition, seatbelt cutters. So 2 things here. These can be used for lighting as well as for self-defense. And think about that for a minute. What can you do with a flashlight or a seatbelt cutter? Okay, let's talk about it. When it comes to being involved in an accident, if you're trapped in the car, it is really important, if you have any broken bones, to wait for emergency personnel to remove you and extract you in a way that's going to be less damaging to your body. We want to minimize any injuries to you as possible. You and your passengers are the most valuable item in that car. So there are times, however, when that isn't something that can be done. So for example, let's say there's an engine fire or a fire on the car where you know that it could actually cause the car to engulf in flames. So you want to think about that. Do you want to wait? No, you want to get out of that vehicle as soon as possible, or any passengers, get them out as soon as possible. Whoever's the injured party needs to be out as well as anybody that is active and mobile, out of that car as soon as possible. So if you have a flashlight, you can utilize the handle to break out a window, and other things. I mean, sometimes you may have to wrap the seatbelt around the handle and use that as a tool to break things loose, or give yourself extra space if you can't get the mechanism on the seatbelt unlocked. Be thinking about how you can use that as an advantage for yourself in any type of a situation. And like I said, there's many situations that it can occur, not just what I'm talking about here. And then if that seatbelt mechanism doesn't work and you happen to have a seatbelt cutter with you, perfect. You just slice it, get yourself free, and get out of the vehicle. So a couple of things there to have handy. The other thing is, seatbelt cutter and flashlight in the trunk are great, because in the event you or somebody else gets put in the seat or in the trunk, you use that seatbelt to cut through tape, seatbelt cutter to cut through tape. You can use the flashlight to punch out one of the rear tail lights, or to even flash and make signals to people on the roadway behind you. These are things to think about. Now, if you're going to put something in the trunk that you can use to get out, you want to think about this for a minute, because you don't want somebody that's putting you in there to know it's there. So you want to strategically place that where you or one of your passengers would know where that's at. And of course, you're only going to tell that to people that you trust. So hopefully you're not picking up hitchhikers. That's a no-no. And if you're transporting people and carpooling and stuff like that, depending on how well you know them, that's something to think about as well. Number 6, here's another strategic location placed thing to do, and that is keeping old cell phones handy. Whether or not you have a carrier connected to an old cell phone makes no difference. That cell phone will call 911 for you if you press 911. So you want to program in an old cell phone 911, so that if you pick it up and press send, that's where it's going to go and be dialed to. The key to this with old cell phones is you need to keep them charged, or they're not going to work. So that's super important. And you want to keep old cell phones up in the front of the vehicle, in the back of the vehicle, and in the trunk. Same thing. You want them accessible in the event you become partially immobile. Say the seatbelt in the car has now become stuck, the mechanism isn't working, you can't move. You want to be able to, if you're a driver, have that within reach so you can dial 911. Or if something happens to you as a driver, one of your passengers can get to a cell phone in the car to be able to dial 911. And then of course, if you're trapped in the trunk, same thing. You want to be able to dial 911. So don't want anything happening to you or anybody in the vehicle. These are all precautions. Plus, the other good thing about having an old cell phone handy is anything could possibly happen. Let's say your current carrier loses signal, but the old cell phone is able to pick up a tower, and you get a flat and you're in the middle of nowhere, you're stranded, whatever the case may be. These are other things, good uses that are available to you. Okay, number 7, purses and valuables. This is going to go back to being parked and having valuables in the car that we talked about at the beginning of the segment here. And that is the purses and valuables that we have in the car are property. They're not as important as your life or the life of a passenger in your car, but they're still important pieces to you. And if you have a purse or a wallet that's got your identity in it, which can cause other types of crimes if that item is stolen. So all of your purses, wallets, valuables, any items that could be a potential opportunity for somebody or desired object for someone, you do not want these visible in the car. That includes while you're in it. Because if your car is unlocked and you have that item sitting on the front seat, somebody can come up and open that passenger door and grab it. And if you try to stop them from grabbing it, well, you can end up in some kind of an altercation with them. Don't want this at all. So if you're a lady and you need to have your purse with you and you get in the car, you put that purse underneath the driver's seat when you get in the car, out of sight. The other thing that happens to be, I haven't heard so much of it lately, but it happens to be a crime that has been happening across the nation, and that is a woman has her purse on the passenger side of the car on the front seat. The doors are unlocked because she's pumping gas. While her back is turned at the pump, somebody on the opposite side of the car is scooting down, they're crouching down, they're going to the passenger side, opening it up and stealing the purse. Okay, yes, it's on a video surveillance system because of the, most gas stations have that now, but you really don't want that from happening. Now, think about that though for a minute too. If they can gain access while you're out there pumping gas in your car just to get your purse or obtain some other valuable, that means they can get in. Okay, we don't want this. So when you're entering and exiting a vehicle, you need to lock your car. And unfortunately, we live in a day and age where just so many different things are happening that this is really important for you to do. I know you shouldn't have to. I don't think I should have to either, but it is what it is. Okay, so what happens when you have valuables that are laying in plain sight? It brings a crime, what's called a crime of opportunity, meaning somebody really didn't have an intention, but now they see it, so they're going to go grab it. It also gives a perpetrator an indication of you. And it can show that you are careless about things, and it can show that you are vulnerable and that you're not paying attention to your surroundings. And that means that maybe they had one crime on their mind. Well, there may be some other ideas that are coming along with that. Whatever you do, you want to protect yourself. And so thinking about these things as self-defense, while you may not physically be doing self-defense, this is something that you can do to defend yourself from a crime. A couple other things here I have a bonus tip for you, and that is on distractions. First bonus tip. If your attention is not on your surroundings or focused on the road, you're more likely to become involved in some kind of a crime, whether it's a car accident or a victim from some physical incident. So the more aware you are, the better you are able to protect yourself. If you can see something, you don't go near it. If you see something and you know that you have things to protect yourself that are strategically placed, you're going to be able to have that extra second or two to get to that. And this is what you want to do, is to minimize any injury to yourself. Okay, so by merely doing the tips that I shared with you today, you're going to be able to prevent and deter a lot of things that can happen. Another thing is keep your head up. A lot of times we hear about this when we're walking. Well, I need to keep my head up and be alert when I'm walking, but you need to do this when you're driving as well. Because if you're reaching down for something, you're playing with your radio, you're looking down at your phone, your doors aren't locked, what can happen? Some of the things that I've already shared with you today. So those are things to do. Keep your head up, keep your door locked, know your surroundings, and do not be distracted. If you need to be in a position where your attention cannot be on your driving or your surroundings, you need to find a place that's a safe spot to park in. And let me go back to number one. When you're parking, you should be backing in to parking spots. And this will serve for a couple of really good points here. One, if your car battery goes dead, a person who needs to jump your car, it'll be nose to nose and easy access. The cables will be able to reach and get your car jumped. But if you also need to escape a situation, zoom, on out you go. You're not trying to back up where you can't see. There are blind spots, you can just get out of that situation. So backing into a spot is really important. Okay, don't be talking or texting while you're driving. You cannot be focused on what's in front of you, what's going on the conversation if you're texting, and sometimes even when you're just talking, depending on the type of the conversation that it is, and what's going on behind you. And so one of the things that you're going to want to be alert to while you're driving is if you're being followed. And this is really important. So do not be distracted while you're driving. It will prevent accidents, and it's going to gain safety and survival techniques for you. Okay, it's going to prevent you from becoming a victim of either of those things. Here's the added bonus tip I have for you today, and that is routes. Know your routes. Know your routes, how many routes that you can take to get to your house. Know how many different routes that you can take to get to the gas station, to the store, to your workplace, to anywhere you're going. And once you're there, the different routes you can use to get out of that location. And in the event that you happen to be in a situation where you think that someone is in the vicinity and they are going to harm you or follow you, you do not want to drive home. You want to drive to the nearest police or fire department. Very important. So you'll want to know where that is as well. And you just don't take the same route. Don't. People can be sitting on the side of the road if you aren't being followed, and they know that at 3:10 p.m. this is where you drive by, and then they can pick up your trail after that, so on and so forth. Don't be a creature of habit. And I know we get comfortable. I do it too. And I always have to think about, okay, Rebecca, you did that already, go a different route. Or if you can't, if you have to take the same route, if you can't vary your route, vary the times that you go that route. Instead of 3:15, do something else for 15 minutes and make it at 3:30. Something important to think about. All of these tips, again, are here to help you to foster some thoughts, to get some visualizations in your mind on how you can react to different situations. These are just a few. And I truly hope that you take a few minutes to think about other things that can happen, what you can do to prevent them, what you can do in the event that they do occur. I definitely want you to get to thinking about these things. And if you end up not, just take the list that accompanies the episode that we're doing today and get the flashlights in the car, get the seatbelt cutters in the car, get some old cell phones charged up, get those in the car. While you're at it and you're in the car, here's another bonus. Have some extra food supplies and water in the car. So I can talk on another episode about some of the things that you can do to things that you can have with you and that you can do in the event that you are stuck and you need to survive. But for now, think about that. the 7 tips that you can do to prevent it from becoming harmed in any way. Okay, you are most important. I'm excited to share this with you. And if you have more tips that you want to share with those viewers that we have, get them over to me. I definitely want to share as much as I can with everyone, because to me, safety is number one. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. Again, send information to me, and if you want some different types of devices that you can use to protect yourself at home, on the go, or on your person, whatever the case may be, you can go to my website, mydamselpro.net/got-your-6, because yep, I do. I got your 6. Thanks for watching today. Again, this has been brought to you by the Liberty Beacon and TLBTV.com.